Should we give a chance to the next speaker right now, or should I go to Nectar of Devotion? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Huh?
Please let us move to the next topic.
Nectar of devotion.
Let's move to the nectar of devotion because it is part of our study. Presentations can be taking place in the next session.
We have
Because-
come prepared with chapter 1, Nectar of devotion.
Chapter 1, Nectar of Devotion. So nice. Okay. I think the next speaker, Muralidharan Prabhu, told me, Aishwarya Mataji said that Rakshita.
No, Radhika ji.
Radhika is not there, Prabhu. She's taking youth batch 6 a.m. class. So she's not there.
Okay.
That's why I said that other Mataji. Okay, let's do Nectar of Devotion. And then at the end, if we have time, we will give chance to Sarita Mataji. Sarita Mataji, you came prepared, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Is that okay if I start Nectar of Devotion?
Yes, Mataji, I am very much eager to attend NOD actually. Yes. I
Okay,
want to
thank
hear the class. Yes. I
Okay.
can do next week, Mataji. No problem.
Tomorrow is another day, not next.
I mean, sorry, yeah. Okay, yeah, tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Nectar of Devotion is one of the most difficult books. I have to myself acknowledge that, because it is the postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. See, the graduate studies Bhagavad Gita, postgraduate studies Srimad Bhagavatam and Nectar of Devotion, then postdoc is Chaitanya Chaitamrita. So it is a postgraduate study. So I don't know how much justice I can do and how much can I simplify. But if you're not gonna come prepared, then you're gonna be way far behind, because this is like this book is written as a PhD paper. If you know how the PhD papers are written, this is how it's written by Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. So by his mercy, let's start. Nectar of Devotion is a summary study of Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. Today we'll be discussing preface, introduction, chapter 1 and 2. Okay, so let's pay our obeisances to Shishi Radha Govinda. So preface, I'll just give an overview. We will discuss the history. If you read the preface, Prabhupada talks about Rupa Goswami Prabhupada's position. He's one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and he's explicitly connected to Krishna. Then the history of Nectar of Devotion is written that we are Rupanugas. Rupanugas means that we actually, in International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or in Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we are called as followers of Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Anuga. Anuga means junior. So followers of Rupa Goswami. So we are called as Rupanugas. Parampara is coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami, and then to and going from the Acharyas to Srila Prabhupada. So it's a summary study. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a big book, but Prabhupada has summarized the whole book in the name of Nectar of Devotion. What are the purposes of Nectar of Devotion is written by Srila Prabhupada in the preface itself. You can catch it if you're reading it nicely. 6 purposes is to make each one of us a Goswami. What is the meaning of the word Goswami, please? Yes, you can raise your hand or write to me in the chat. What is the meaning of the word Goswami? Yes, Tanvi Mataji. Tanvi Mataji, you're not audible. What is the meaning of the word Goswami? Tanvi, you're not audible. Sunita Arvind Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, master of senses.
Very nice. Master of the senses. So Goswami. Go means senses and Swami means who's a master. So Godas is the servant of the senses. Thank you. You can lower your hand. So the purpose is to make each one of us a Goswami, master of the senses. Then to explain Bhakti Rasa versus material Rasa, which I will touch upon in a minute. Then practical hints to live in material world by devotional service. So you live in material world, but we remain untouched by material world. What is that science? You know, a science, Krishna gives example of Padma Patram, Ivam Bhasha. Padma Patram means lotus leaf. Ivam Bhasha, as the Padma Patram or the lotus leaf remains untouched in the water, even though it lives in the water, but it remains untouched. It doesn't get spoiled by the water, right? Like that, the science for a devotee to live in the material world, but not become a part of the material world is explained in this book. Then stimulate original love in 5 different rasas. What are the 5 different rasas? What are the 5 different rasas? With the 5 primary rasas. Yes, Mataji, Rakshita, Mataji. You can write to me too. Go on, because we have so much to cover. Mataji, you're muted. Okay, I think we'll catch up on it later. So 5 different rasas. Science of perfectly loving all living entities. Prabhupada writes towards the end of the preface that every living entity has a tendency to love someone, but we just don't know where to repose this love. That is why it is frustrated. That is why person who loves somebody else in the form of a family person, or a nationalist, or a communist, or a philanthropist, or altruistic, or a good, or whatever, in whatever form one wants to love someone else, always meets with frustration, because we just don't know how to perfectly love everyone. So Nectar Devotion is going to teach us how to love each and everyone through Krishna, and nurture devotional life for practicing devotees. Okay, it nurtures our Krishna consciousness. Little bit about Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. He was born in 1489 in Brahmin Saraswati family. Actually, Saraswati Brahman, he was by birth. But because he and his brother, Sanatan Goswami, took up a job as in Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim leader, that they were outcasted. They were ostracized from their community. Hukka pani band. If you hear Prabhupada's lecture, he says that because they took up the job in the Muslim Shaha, they were stopped. Hukka pani band. No more eating and no more getting up and lying down with these 2 people. Actually, they had to change their names also. So Rupa Goswami was Dabir Khas, and Sanatan Goswami was Shakhar Murli. So Rupa Goswami Prabhupada met Lord Chaitanya in Ramakeli first time, and then the second time was at Prayag at Ashwamedha Yagya in India, and that's where he was instructed in the science of bhakti by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. Rupa Goswami is called as Rasacharya. You see, there are not many sampradayas which talk about rasa. Doesn't. Our sampradaya talks about rasa. Rasa word means taste. Literal meaning of the word rasa is taste. You see, rasagulla. What is the taste which is very sweet is rasgulla in the sweet ball. So rasa literally means taste. But rasa is also used as a concept in the Sanskrit language. The rasa is used as a concept to make a play. If somebody is writing a play, then or let's say that there is a serial or a TV serial or a movie, then there are some characters in the movie, and then the characters are having some emotions for each other, and then there is some melodrama, some drama, and then there is this, it incites some kind of feelings in the viewer. So all this is a part of rasa. We are feeling different emotions, so that's taste, but that's material rasa. But Rupa Goswami Prabhupada used the same concept of rasa by using it, by giving it perfection, and giving us Krishna consciousness, that how can we taste the mellow of a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Other sampradayas don't talk like, Mother Yashoda is running behind Krishna because she's Krishna's mother. So that's a rasa. She's enjoying that mellow of being a mother. Okay, so Rupa Goswami Prabhupada gives this concept of rasa. So he's called Rasa Acharya. He's the leader of this Rasa Acharya, but Bhakti Rasa, okay, not material rasa. And his worshipable deity is Govindji. He wrote 2 books on rasa with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One work is this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the other work is Ujjwala Nirmani. Ujjwala Nirmani actually describes, I have not read that book, but I have heard from senior devotees in our movement that book basically describes different variations of Madhurya Rasa, conjugal love. Like conjugal, so Madhurya Rasa, some Sakhis or Manjaris or Paksha or Vipaksha or Radharani, the topmost Sakhi, the topmost devotee, the Gopi, like that. What are the details of Madhurya Rasa is described in Ujjwala Niramani. He has written all other, he has given us all these books, Lalita Madhava, Vigada Madhava, Upadeshamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Srila Prabhupada gave a series of lecture on Nectar of Devotion at Radha Damodar Temple in Vrindavan, next to the Samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada on Nectar of Devotion. So please hear those series. Okay, the speaker starts the preface by submitting the prayer to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Rupa Goswami Prabhupada wrote this prayer for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, who established the mission to fulfill the heart desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So he's like asking that, when will you give me shelter under your lotus feet, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So this is the prayer. This is the beginning. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Srila Rupa Goswami the ultimate limit of the truth about Lord Krishna, the truth about devotional service, and truth about transcendental mellows. So this is called Krishna Tattva. Who is Krishna? That's Krishna Tattva. Bhakti Tattva. What is the devotional service to Krishna? And Rasa Tattva. What are the transcendental mellows that one can explain or enjoy with Krishna? By entering the heart of Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to ascertain properly the conclusions of all truths. Okay, it's not easy to understand the conclusions of all truths. This is a very, very detailed subject matter. We cannot just study because we know English and we know how to read it. No, we have to be qualified to understand, and we can only become qualified by begging at the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that please make us understand. He made him an experienced devotee whose decisions correctly agreed with the verdicts of the disciplic succession. Thus, Sri Rupa Goswami was personally empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so this is Dashwamedh Ghat in Prayag in India, where Rupa Goswami Prabhupada was personally instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 10 continuous days. So again, Prabhupada talks about in the preface, Bhakti Rasa and Material Rasa. You see, a person who's a family man or who's a businessman and who's a national leader is also moved by some rasa, taste, right? There's some affection, there's some taste in that post of being a family man or a philanthropist or a nationalist, which keeps each one of them moving. Right? Prabhupada talks about this, that in the martial laws of economics, he talks about his own teacher, that if he said that if you want to study that which country will be most flourishing economically, then you study their social structure. The country where you're going to have a lot of family units will be the country where there will be a lot of economic development, because there is this desire to earn more because of the family. If a person doesn't have a family, they are usually, what do you say, very easygoing, not very interested in becoming too big in general. Right or wrong? You are awake? Yes or no?
Yes,
Normal.
Yes.
Mataji.
Yes,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Yes,
Yes, we are awake.
Mataji.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
So, okay, thank you. So like that, so that is material rasa. So, but bhakti rasa is moved by a love for Krishna. Like a material rasa is moved by so-called affection or love for all these things. Bhakti rasa moves the devotee like that. So bhakti connotes devotional love. Okay, the love is a very difficult subject matter in itself, according to our scriptures and acharyas. But devotional love implies service. Okay, just by saying I love you, Krishna, is not enough. What are you doing for Krishna will show how much I love Krishna. Okay, if I really love Krishna, chanting 16 rounds is not a problem, because if you have seen the closest example in this material world of how Krishna loves a living entity is a mother's love for a child, right? If you a mother, she if of a newborn baby, she hardly sleeps in the night, right? Every 2 hours, 3 hours, the child has to eat. Or if she sleeps 3-4 hours and then she feels guilty that, oh my God, my baby must be hungry. So that means there's so much activity in that love. There's so much activity, right? That my child needs this, my child needs that. She's constantly on her toes. All the mothers or fathers can relate to what I'm saying. You can relate to what I'm saying? That there is a
Very
lot of
much,
activity.
Yes,
There's
Mataji.
a lot of activity in that love. It's not that the mother has given birth to a newborn baby and now she has taken some sleeping pills and she's sleeping and she's saying, I love you, my child. That's not the case. She's working like that. If somebody says, I love Krishna, then we have to see the service. Where is the service for Krishna? Okay, the service refers to activity which is intended to please the beloved, which we will study, and that is love. Okay, that is the secret of loving God or loving anyone through God. Primary stage of Prabhupada gives this example that primary stage is from family to society to humanity, and then is a basic propensity, and we can't live without it. Don't think that we can live without loving anyone. It is so basic that Prabhupada says in the lecture that in America, he saw that if somebody doesn't have a family member, then they keep a pet, a dog or a cat to love, because they want to, relish that exchange of a relationship with some living entity in some way. So that's how basic it is for us. And it gets fulfillment when it is connected to Krishna. Like, for example, watering the root is going to water the entire plant, or when one switch that can brighten the all. Or the other good example is put the food in the stomach and the whole body gets satisfied. Okay, so that's bhakti. Now, rasa, juice or mellow, is the literal meaning. There's mundane rasa and then there's bhakti rasa. Mundane rasa is chapala sukha. Chapala sukha matlab hota hai flickering happiness. It's there, it's not there. It's like a pendulum. Somebody loves someone and then the material things change. The material modes are acting all the time. So the material situation change. So the love fades away. So I don't love it anymore. And then the love goes to someone else and then I don't love anymore. Like that, it's like chapala sukha, that flickering. Oscillates, tasteless, bhoga tyaga principle. Prabhupada gives this example of a businessman. Let's say there's a very successful businessman and working very hard from Monday to Friday. But on the weekend, they want to forget their position. They want to forget who they are and they want to go on a vacation to a forest or some other place where they can get away from what they are really. So that's tyaga. And then when the week starts again, then they start their bhoga business again, the enjoyment again. And then the weekend comes and they start their tyaga business. So Prabhupada, you should hear this lecture. So Prabhupada says bhoga tyaga, December 26, 1972. I love this lecture. As I remember, Prabhupada gave this lecture, the pendulum of a clock, bhoga tyaga, tuck, 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 no standing. So that's, it's tasteless. But because they don't know anything better, they keep on chewing the chewed. But bhakti rasa is fresh all the time and it is eternal. Okay, it's not that it is not dependent or it doesn't fade away and it doesn't oscillate and there is no vacation in Krishna consciousness. Actually, we wait. When can I do it again? And when can I go to temple again? When can I live there? When can I associate with devotees? When can I see the deities, right? The bhakti, rasa, and amrita. Amrita means eternal. It remains fresh. Krishna consciousness never fades away. Now, you all have read Bhagavad Gita at least once, I assume, and I believe. But how many of you think that you're done? And how many of you think, bahut ho gaya? I read
Not
it.
at
It's
all.
enough.
Never
Not
How
at
many-
all.
No, there are many levels.
Not enough.
It's just a beginning.
Okay, so it's fresh. The point is that bhakti, rasa, amrita, and then it is sindhu. So we may manage to procure a few drops of sense pleasure. Sindhu means ocean or ocean of pleasure. So bhakti, rasa, amrita, sindhu, or nectar of devotion is this is the meaning of bhakti. Bhakti means love, means service, and service means activity. Rasa, there is mundane and there is bhakti rasa. So we are talking about bhakti rasa, which remains always fresh, and it is ocean of happiness, this ocean of pleasure. Okay, we may manage to procure a few drops of sense pleasure, but there is an entire ocean of nectar devotion easily available to all always. By understanding nectar devotion, we can dive deeply into that ocean. So bhakti means devotional service, and rasa is a force of pleasure that drives person or people to do the service. Rasa is a mellow that comes from a relationship. Bhakti rasa is different, transcendental, eternal, and perfect. Okay, I'm just revising. Mundane rasa, no endurance, always need of a shift of situation, bhoga tyaga dynamics. Change due to our constitutional position, sense gratification, chapala sukha. Okay, just a very quick revision in this slide. Bhakti rasa is amrita, permanent, deathless. Next body, deva, desire, karma, and mercy, right? Next body, whatever I'm going to get is dependent on what is my desire, what are my activities. And like Ajamil, he got the mercy at the last minute. It can change everything. So by mercy of Krishna, we can continue as humans. The basic principle is that we have a general propensity to love someone. The missing point, however, is where to repose our love so that everyone can become happy. I just copy pasted it from the preface, some of the last paragraphs. Prabhupada is writing this. So we are missing the point. That's why this loving propensity is never satisfied. You know, if a person has worked all life very hard for their family, they will feel at some point in their life that my family can never become happy. No one really understands me. I feel so alone. Can you relate to what I'm saying? I wish there was somebody who could really understand me. Can you relate to what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji.
Mataji.
Yes.
But the problem is that that wish is not directed properly. So Prabhupada is saying the missing point is Krishna. Like Nectar of Devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and enjoy blissful life. So how do we go there? Okay, this is where we need to go. So broadness of love, so many categories are there: parents, family, society, community, country, nation, humanity. Loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know the supreme beloved Krishna. Which deities are these? Where are they? Loving every living entity by loving Krishna brings peace and harmony all over the world. Yes, Rashmi Mataji, which deities are they?
Mayapur.
What is the name?
I don't know the name.
Who knows? Thank you.
Ashtasakhi. Ashtasakhi and
Radha Madhav.
Radha Mother. Yes, Mataji.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay. So missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Self-realization and Krishna realization are hand in hand. Okay, sunshine analogy Prabhupada gives that if you are looking at the sunshine, it automatically means you're looking at the sun, because sunshine is a part of sun. So if we don't understand in this life who is Krishna, what is my relationship with Krishna, and what are the activities in that relationship with Krishna, and how can I get to that activity, sambandha, abhideya, prayojan, gyan, then I actually miss myself too. You know, we have this tendency to love ourselves. We have this. Krishna is called, what is he called as? Atmaram, right? Krishna is called Atmaram. Atmaram means he is very self-satisfied within himself. He doesn't actually need anyone to satisfy him. If you actually deeply study the subject matter of Atmaram, quality of Krishna, I had this realization once. So Krishna is happy just by hearing about himself, right? Krishna is hearing from the gopis and or from the Brajavasis, or from the queens in Dwarka, or from Arjun. Everywhere he's hearing about himself only, right? And he's very happy. We have the same tendency. When somebody tells us that, oh, you are like this, why don't you sit down and let me tell you what you're good at and what can you improvise on, and the person is genuine, that attracts us, right? This person is going to talk about me to me. Does that attract you? If I say,
Yes, Mataji.
if I say, and I'm not saying it, but if I say, let me mentor you, I'll become your mentor, which means that there'll be an exchange, and we are going to work on you in your Krishna consciousness. How many of you will get attracted to that? You can raise your hand.
Yes.
Just raise your hand. How many of you will accept that proposal and get attracted to that? I would be attracted to, if somebody says I'll be a mentor, and I will, right? So let's be honest that we are attracted to our own selves because there is Atma inside and there is Paramatma. That attraction is coming from there. I want to know who I am. I want to know what I'm good at. I want to know what I'm not good at. That Atmaram quality is a little bit there, but quantity is different. Thank you. You can lower your hands. Okay, so Krishna consciousness is self-consciousness also, or self-realization. That's preface. Then we go to the introduction. Introduction is divided into three parts. Any questions in preface? I don't know how much we can finish today. Please remind me about the time. Any questions about the preface? So in preface, we studied the history of Nectar of Devotion, the history of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada a little bit, and the history of how Nectar of Devotion was told to Rupa Goswami Prabhupada by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Dashwamed Ghat at Prayag in India. And we also studied the meaning of the word Bhakti, Rasa, Amrita, and Sindhu. And then the last part was that this loving propensity can be fully satisfied if we learn it, how to bring it to Krishna. If you remember this much, more than enough. Now, if no one is asking question, then it means a green flag. Go ahead. Yes, no?
Yes, Mataji.
Please.
Yes,
Okay.
Please.
So introduction. Next, we are transitioning to introduction. You got to go back and read. Okay. Introduction is divided into 3 parts: Mangalacharan, contents, and definition of pure devotional service. These are the 3 things discussed in introduction. Mangalacharan means which invokes auspiciousness. Mangala Archana. Mangal means auspicious. That's something which invokes the auspiciousness. So definition or defining the objective of the book, Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti. I will bring up this verse from the real Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in a bit, which is not there in Nectar of Devotion, but I'll bring it up. Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti. Let's understand. This is Krishna. Okay. Rupa Goswami Prabhupada starts the introduction by invoking auspiciousness by paying obeisances to Krishna. And this is Krishna, Akhila Rasa. So Akhila Rasa means complete ras. All the rasas, all the 5 primary rasas are completely manifested in Krishna. Amrita Murti is completely. Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. Krishna means what? What is the meaning of the word Krishna? What is the meaning of the word Krishna?
All attractive.
Very nice. All attractive. So he's all attractive because he has all the 5 primary rasas fully manifested. No one else has it. That's why he's Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one else. Okay, we give the example of, let's say, Lord Rama. Lord Rama exhibits maybe 2.5. They don't exhibit, not that they don't have it, but they don't show it. So maybe 2.5 of 5 primary rasas. So let's analyze. So he has Vatsalya ras, he has parents, right? So his parental affection is going on in Lord Rama's Leela. And then he has Madhurya ras, but only with Mother Sita. No Sakhya ras, no friends. And then he has Dasya ras, Hanuman, right? So those that's only that's the pretty much that's what he exhibits. Or Narayan feature exhibits mostly Dasya ras or Shanta ras, right? So but there is no Vatsalya, or there is no Madhurya or Sakhya ras. There is no Sakhya, Dasya, or neutrality, Shanta. The only Dasya and Shanta in Narayan. So 2 features of the 5 of 5 rasas are exhibited in Narayan. Or you take anyone else, there will not be anyone else other than Krishna which is exhibiting all all 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas to fully exhibiting. That is why he's called Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti. He's full of, Murti means his form, and Akhila Rasa means complete. Amrita means he's fully exhibiting these loving exchanges. Tasty, very, very sweet. Lord Krishna possesses a form of supreme bliss, Amrita Murti. So Amrita Murti is form of supreme bliss, supremely attractive. Since he is a reservoir of all rasas, all relationships, contains all the 12 rasas in perfection, Akhila Rasa. So it's called Purusham Purnam, Adi Purusham, Satyam Paramam Dhimahi. So all these are the words used for Krishna because of this reason. Because this Supreme Personality of Godhead called Krishna has all these in completeness. So this is the verse. Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti Prashi Mara Ruchi Rudha Tarika Paliha Kalita Shama Lalito Radha Prayan Vidhur Jayati. So if when you come to Bhakti Shastri, and I happen to take your class there, then I will explain this verse in more detail. But this verse is very sweet. So I thought that I will bring it up to give more taste to the class. So this verse is translated Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti, we discussed, right? So victory to the moon, Vidur. Krishna is addressed here as Vidur, which has intentional dual meaning. Vidur means, and Radha Prayan Vidur Jayati. So Radha Prayan is the meaning is the star called Radha. So in spring season, the moon in Vedic cosmology, I don't understand the Vedic cosmology, but what I have read from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and what I've heard from senior devotees is that in the month of Basak, in the month of spring, or Vishak, something like that, the moon moves in such a manner that it wants to come towards a star called Radha, the star. So which actually indicates that Vidur is victory to the moon, or victory to moon like Krishna. So the two intentional dual meaning is there. Vidur means moon, and Vidur also means moon like Krishna, and who is enamored by the star named Radha, who is the embodiment of all flavor and vitality, whose radiant luster dominates the galaxy of stars, and who owns the romantic graces of the dark night. Or victory to moon like Krishna, who is enamored by Radha, who is embodied of all pleasure and vitality, whose radiant luster dominates the hearts of the star-like girl named Taraka, the galaxy-like girl named Pali, and who owns the hearts of the beautiful dark girl called Shyama, and the romantic graceful girl called Lalita. So here there's a lot of detail which I myself don't understand because I'm not so pure, but what I understand is that the names, Taraka, Pali, Kalita, Shyama, Lalito, Radha. So there is two. If you read Madhurya Ras, and if you read the details of the Madhurya Ras, then in Radharani's group in Goloka Vrindavan, there is something. Whoever is in her group is called Paksha, in her Paksha, right? And whoever is not in her group is called Vipaksha. So this Taraka, Pali, and Kalita are in Vipaksha. They are always trying to see that how Radharani will not meet Krishna. Actually, Taraka wants to embrace Krishna. So how that's Vipaksha. And the other, Shyama, Lalita, they are all in Krishna, Radharani's side. So they're called Radharani's Paksha. They're always trying to see that how Radharani can meet Krishna. So the drama is going on over there too. That's just a reflection here. Okay, so this is our Ashtasakhi. That is why we worship Radha Krishna in our temples, because as the highest conjugal love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so the introduction was to Mangalacharan, where the writer pays obeisances to Supreme Personality of Godhead, Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti, and then he pays obeisances to the devotees, to acharyas, and to all the three people, to the devotees, to acharyas, and all the saintly people. So obeisances onto devotees and acharyas who are like sharks, Bhakta Makara. So in the ocean of nectar, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, dive deep. Those who go deep remain undisturbed, and those who do not care for rivers of liberation, Mukti Nadika. The impersonalists are dwelling in river water, which eventually come to mix with the ocean. So Rupa Goswami Prabhupada is now invoking auspiciousness by offering his prayers to the devotees and acharyas, and he's addressing them as Bhakta Makara. So Makara, generally like shark. You see, the word is like shark. Generally, we think that shark is a very big, or one of the biggest fishes in the ocean, but there are more big fishes. We get information from Nectar of Devotion and Srimad Bhagavatam, and Makara is kind of the king of all the fishes. So Makara, you see in Damodar Ashtakam, Krishna's, one of the translation is Lasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam, right? Lasat Kundalam, that his shark-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro. You know, when he's shaking his face, his shark-shaped earrings are swinging. If you wear like a jhumka and you shake your head, then it moves when the movement of the head. Like that, he's wearing the shark-shaped earring. So that's called Makara. Makara is not a shark, it's shark-like. So he's saying that, and why is he saying, addressing Rupa Goswami Prabhupada to devotees and acharyas, the shark-like or Bhakta Makara? Because those devotees are not superficial. They live deep down in the ocean of bhakti. They don't come to the rivers of liberation. They don't care for the rivers of liberation, which means that they are so, whenever there is some flood, Imagine, will the depth of an ocean be disturbed by any kind of flooding? Will there be any kind of disturbance to the depth of the ocean by anything going outside on the rivers? Yes?
No.
No,
So,
Mataji.
No, no.
so realizations of these acharyas is so deep that they are compared to Bhakta Makara, which actually live deep in the ocean. So they don't care for the rivers of liberation. And what are the rivers of liberation? The 5 kinds of liberation, right? Sayojya Mukti means merging in the Brahman effulgence. Sarupya means getting the same form as Lord. Salokya means living on the same planet as the Lord. Samipya means being near to the Lord, or Sashti means having the same opulence as the Lord. So they don't care for all these kinds of liberation. Then what do they care about? Serving Krishna. They just care about like how can I serve Krishna? Okay, so their realizations are not so deep. That is why this is a very detailed book. It's starting like that. So this is Makara. See, Krishna is wearing these earrings which are shark shaped. So that's Makara. It's worshipped in India and also parts of Indonesia and Thailand. So definition of pure devotional service. This is one of the very pivotal verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and also of Krishna Conscious International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Very important to understand this verse. There are many levels of understanding. I will try to give a basic understanding here. In Bhakti Shastri, we will discuss more. So, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam, Shilan Bhaktir Uttama. This verse is described in many, many places. Chaitanya Chaitamrita has this verse. And also Srimad Bhagavatam has this verse. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has this verse. The same verse as it is repeated in all these books. So what is the definition of a pure devotional service? Is a subject matter of a person who is interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness. First class devotional service is known as one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna service, serving the Lord favorably. So let's discuss one by one. Okay. So Bhakti Rasa is the subject of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? This is the subject matter. But before describing the relishable flavor of bhakti, we must first understand what bhakti is. Rupa Goswami therefore defines bhakti in the first division of this book, of his book, beginning with this essential shlok. This shlok is a pivotal verse, pivotal. If you don't understand this verse, then there is no point in going ahead. So Uttama Bhakti, this is pure devotional service, right? Highest. Uttama means highest, or Uttama also means which is above Tama. Tama means ignorance. So above Tama means in knowledge, not in ignorance. And then Krishna Anushilanam, Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. So Krishna Anushilanam means Uttama Bhakti consists of an endeavor, Shilanam, that praises Krishna. So endeavor, right? Activity. Indeed, this is explained first rather than Anya Abhilashita Shunyam explained first. Krishna Anushilanam is explained first, and Shilanam means endeavor, to do something. So it indicates that there is an endeavor that pleases Krishna. Now there's a little bit of a discussion of pleasing Krishna. So even pleasing Krishna, this is sadhana bhakti, right? So this can be done by some activity for Krishna, which is called Cheshtarupa Bhakti, which each one of us must be doing at this stage, which means doing an active service. And what happens with that? That it invokes the affection for him. So a practitioner by worship, by taking names of Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, attending the sadhu sangha with other devotees, listening from senior devotees, listening from Prabhupada, reading his books, giving seminars, or going out and preaching, or doing kirtan, going to temple, going to dham. What does it do? It invokes affection in our heart for Krishna. We got to know who is Krishna. So we start loving Krishna a little bit. And then also we learn how to express our affection for him, Anubhav. So not only that, we learn that, okay, I actually do get some relishing thing in my heart when I chant Hare Krishna. I actually do feel happy. So it's invoking affection, but it also makes us move more, do more activity, right? This is, I think I told you all the definition of emotion is a feeling that put one's in motion. So you that emotion gets a motion there in Cheshtarupa Bhakti, active work actively working, like offering bhoga to Krishna. Okay, and then when it goes further, it's called bhava rupa bhakti, or affection of Krishna. So that has two parts, bhava and prema. So which I will explain as we go further. Which only prema bhakti is a subject matter for, or mahabhav is only for 3 devotees so far: Madhavendra Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Radharani. There is no other devotee who has experienced mahabhav as these 3. Then the other word used is anukulena. Anukulena. So anukulena means favorable. Favorable, or what does it really mean? Let's understand. Why am I bringing up? So anukul, generally anukul and pratikul, right? Pratikul means not favorable. Let's say that you scold me, or you defame me. Then I'm not going to take the class because it's not favorable. Or you say you encourage me, that Prema Kishori, you take okay class, but I think you can improve here and you can improve there. So this is an encouragement. So that's okay. That's anukul. Okay, but pratikul is that you better get out. You don't know anything. You can never improve. You're so dull-headed. That's pratikul. So anukul bhakti. What does anukul bhakti mean? Does anukul bhakti means that something that pleases Krishna? Is that anukul bhakti? What is the meaning of this word? So let's discuss this word. It's so nice. Okay, so I'll give you 2 case scenarios. Okay, so what is happening here? What's happening here? What's happening in this picture? What's happening?
Lord Hare Krishna Mataji. Narasimha,
devotion to
because of the prayers of Prahlada, killing Hiranyakashipu.
Hiranyakashipu is getting an operation, right? This is happening. In other words,
Getting killed. Yeah, kind of.
yeah. So, so he's getting an operation by Narasimha Dev. So, and Narasimha Dev, if you read 7th canto, he's enjoying it. He's relishing it. You know, he's like using his sharp nails, and he's starting from the lower part of his abdomen. Vyasdev describes, he goes straight, then he separates the skin, and he drinks the blood, and he takes away the intestine and keeps it around his neck as a garland, and he's so happy. So that means it's pleasing Krishna, right? It's pleasing Krishna. So, but can we say that this is bhakti? Because this is pleasing Krishna. Yeah, right or wrong? It's pleasing Krishna, right?
Yes,
Yes, Mataji.
Can we say that this is bhakti? Can we say that this is bhakti?
No.
Yes, even though it's
Yes.
pleasing Krishna, but it's not bhakti.
We can't do it.
It's a ferocious expression. Ferocious expression of bhakti.
Is yeah, I said in the beginning of the class, simplicity is the best policy. Is it bhakti? Is Hiranyakashipu known as a devotee of Narasimha Dev, and
No,
he's giving
Mataji.
pleasure to Narasimha Dev?
No, Mataji.
Okay, so unanimously we agreed it is not bhakti. So even though Krishna is pleased, but we are still saying it is not bhakti. Okay, now I'm gonna give this a second case situation. Here, who is this? Who is this? What's happening?
Mother running behind the child.
Vatsras is going on. Mata Yashoda.
Vatsalya.
Okay, Yashoda mother is running with the stick in her hands, because Krishna broke the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter. So why did he break the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter? Because Mother Yashoda put him on the side to take care of the boiling milk in the kitchen, right? So that means that the action of Mother Yashoda putting Krishna on the side was displeasing to Krishna. It was displeasing. That's why he wanted to express his displeasure by picking up a stone and breaking that pot of yogurt and making it hither and thither and giving it to monkeys and whatnot, right? So he's displeased. And not only that, Mother Yashoda is running behind him and he's full of fear, that actually she catches him and binds him. That, okay, you're too naughty, now you stand here. So Mother Yashoda displeased Krishna. That's why Krishna broke the pot of yogurt that she was turning into butter. But is this bhakti? Is this bhakti?
Rasa Mataji.
Yes, Bhakti,
Yes,
but
Mataji.
don't have
Yes,
to
Mataji.
Yes.
It is must be
Yes.
Bhakti. She's a Nitya Siddha Bhakta. She's always a devotee. She never changes her position ever. She doesn't know anyone. She doesn't care to know whether Krishna is God or not. She only knows that Krishna is my son and I need to feed him, otherwise he will die. Right? In Putana's pastime, when when she found Krishna on top of Putana's dead body, first thing she did is grab the child and started circumambulating around the cow and chanting various mantras on the body part of Krishna to protect his body, right? And she was actually she was actually worshipping Narayana to give protection to her small boy. So, but it is bhakti. So what does this word anukul really means then? Pleasing Krishna? Because if that is the case, then this is a pleasure and this is not a pleasure. So then what does it mean? Okay, I will break the secret. What it means is the intention to please Krishna is more important than the actual result. So Mother Yashoda her intention was always to please Krishna. She wants Krishna to grow fatty by drinking the fatty milk or making sweets or making yogurt or giving him whatever different products of milk. So that was her intention. Whether Krishna is pleased or not, that is secondary. But the intention, that is why Krishna has another name. His name is Bhavagrahi Janardana. Bhavagrahi, he extracts the intention. He extracts the bhava by which we go to Krishna. So be utterly honest. Okay, the showcase will not. This is anukul bhakti. So and then anya abhilashita shunyam. Shunyam means zero, right? Shunyam means void, empty. So what is empty or void in Uttama Bhakti? Anya abhilashita. Anya abhilasha. Abhilasha means desire. Anya means any other desire other than the intention to please Krishna should be completely empty, zero. This phrase indicates that Uttam Bhakti is free from ulterior motive. Not like I will go to Krishna if I will get good money in my job, or if I'll get a good house to live in, or if I will go to Krishna, or if I get a long life, I'll go to Krishna. So there's no if and buts attached. There's no other desire other than a desire to please Krishna or to serve Krishna, the intention. And jnana, karma, adi, anavritam. So jnana is knowledge, karma, and then adi. Karma is activity or karma, and adi means etc. Anavritam. Anavrita means which is not obstructed, is not overshadowed. It's not. So the Uttama Bhakti is free from jnana and karma. Jnana, Prabhupada explains this. I heard him today only. December 27, 1972 lecture here. Prabhupada explains that in the war of Mahabharata, Krishna told Yudhishthir to go and tell lie to Dronacharya that your son Ashwathama is dead. Okay, so now, so that will weaken Dronacharya and then he will die. So what did Yudhishthir Maharaj say? That I have never spoken lie in my life. I cannot say. So that's jnana, to consider something against Krishna's wishes. So that's jnana. So free from that. Karma. Okay, by doing some karma, somebody can get some benefit. So but let's say by worshipping Krishna, somebody gets their material desires fulfilled. So that material fulfillment of the material desire now motivates the person to go to Krishna until they keep on getting the same reciprocation. But if Krishna stops reciprocating, then they go away from Krishna and go to someone else. So jnana, karma, adi, anavritam. So what it literally means is that jnana and karma are allowed unless and until they don't obstruct your devotion to Krishna. We can become a jnani or we can do work for our day-to-day living, but only to that extent that it is not obstructing my approach to Krishna. Okay, so this phrase indicates that Uttama Bhakti, one's endeavor to please Krishna, is one's main pursuit. It is not obstructed or overshadowed by any other endeavors. So what are the other endeavors? Rupa Goswami mentions cultivation of knowledge, which is jnana, secular and religious endeavor for personal prosperity, karma, and similar other pursuits, adi. So these are the 6 Goswamis, and they gave this definition: anya abhilashita shunyam, jnana, karma, adi, anavritam, anukulena krishna anushilanam, bhaktir uttama. So that kind of a bhakti is pure devotional service, which is the subject matter of Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, nectar of devotion. Devotional bhakti, this is the conclusion, is an endeavor intended to please Krishna. So, an endeavor intended to please Krishna. Krishna may be pleased, may not be pleased, but the endeavor is intended to please Krishna. When this endeavor is free from the impurities of ulterior motive and not overshadowed by other endeavors, it is Uttama Bhakti or pure devotion. The remainder of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes Uttama Bhakti and its ambrosial flavors. Clear? If this is not clear, then the next topic is characteristics of pure devotional service. So if we don't know what is pure devotional service, then we don't know. I wanted to give this example of pure devotional service. I think you all know this story, but just to revise, when Krishna had a headache, okay, he had a terrible headache, and many doctors were called, and he said, no doctor can cure me, only if you get me the dust from the feet of my devotee and I put it on my head, will this headache go away. So all the devotees were asked that please give a dust on your feet so Krishna can put it on his head. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? Hey, Krishna has a headache and we give our feet dust to him so he can put it on head. We'll go to hell. What are you saying? No, not possible. So then they came back. Narad Muni came back to Krishna and he said, no one is giving. So he said, okay, try the gopis in Vrindavan. They're my friend. Ask them if they can give me little dust. So Narad Muni went to Vrindavan and then asked the gopis that, can you give Krishna has a headache, can you give the dust at your lotus feet so Krishna can put it on his head and get cured of his headache? So Krishna has a headache. Okay, you want dust on the feet? Yeah, take it. So see how they are collecting Radharani's dust so Krishna can do it. And Narad Muni asked, aren't you worried whether you'll go to hell after doing this activity that your dust will go to the head of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Isn't it sinful? And they said, we don't care. It doesn't matter where we go, where we don't go. We are not so jnanis. Krishna has a headache and he needs this, and that's all we know. This is pure devotional service, okay? Okay, so primary, so Sarupa Lakshana or primary is Krishna Anushilanam, cultivation for Krishna's pleasure, following Acharyas. Anukul means favorable bhakti, not pratikul. And secondary or Tathastha Lakshana is Anyabhilashita Shunyam, free from ulterior motive, Jnana, Karma, Adi, Anavritam, uncovered by Jnana and Karma. I want each one of you to remember this verse. Will you please memorize this verse if I share with all of you? Yes? Will you please memorize?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes,
Anyabhilashita Shunyam.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you very much. Should be able to give and define what does it mean. So cultivation means activity. These are the two go points in introduction. Consciousness alone cannot help us okay? There's got to be an activity attached to the realization. And activities can be pravritti or nivritti, negative or positive. Shastras talk to us like that, what to do and what not to do, or what to avoid. Accepting favorable and rejecting unfavorable, that's a pravritti marg and nivritti marg. Thinking, feeling, and willing are the activities of the mind, and senses is the Cheshtarupa Bhakti. We can do for our functional senses or knowledge acquiring senses, the Cheshtarupa Bhakti. Devotional service is under internal energy of Krishna. Whatever is done for Krishna, like right now we are discussing about Krishna, it's not in the material energy. It's in the internal potency of Krishna. Any desire other than to please the Lord is material desire. Desireness, Anya Abhilashita. So that is why it is said Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, should be 0. Okay, so that concludes our introduction. Now, outline of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. How many of you want me to go on chapter 1 and 2? Are you tired?
Yeah, no, we are not tired, Mataji.
Are you sure? It's a
Yes,
lot.
positive.
You can even write to me in the chat. I know Dr. Parekh is one of our senior devotees now. He's been with us. Can we stop here? We're getting late. It's 1.5 hour class. Are we getting late? Is it been 1.5 hours? It's supposed to be a 1.5 hour class, Deeparani Mataji. Duty at 8:30. Stop. Okay, I will stop after I discuss the outline. Just hear the outline. So outline of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is Purva Vibhag. So I think I should have put one. Let me see what is next slide. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is divided into 4 parts. Like if you have an ocean, And this is a map that they used to use for ocean marking, which is the northern side, a southern side, a western side, and an eastern side of the ocean. Like that, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is divided into Purva, Dakshin, and east and west, like that. Okay, so the part that we are reading right now, so like this. So Uttar is northern, and then we have the eastern or a Purva Vibhag, and then we have the Dakshin Vibhag, and then we have the Paschim Vibhag. What we are focusing right now is then eastern side of the ocean, just the eastern side. Introduction to chapter 19 is the subject matter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So eastern side, only from introduction to chapter 9. So that's what was the context of the last slide. Samanya Bhakti, which starts with Mangalacharan, Guru Vandana, Vaishnava Vandana, and Grantha Vibhag. So if we start the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Mangalacharan, we invoke the auspiciousness, and then we pay obeisance to the spiritual master, to all the Vaishnava devotees, and to all the sections of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Grantha Vibhag. So I said this ocean has, and now let's focus only on the eastern part, just the eastern part. As ocean, each part of the ocean, the northern part, the southern part, the western part, and the eastern part has the waves, right? There are waves like that. In the eastern side of the ocean, what we are discussing has 4 waves, laharis. So that is what is introduction to chapter 19. So on the eastern side of this ocean, there are 4 waves, and this is this overview. So first wave, which is introduction to chapter 1, is Samanya Bhakti, or general description. Then chapter 2 to 16 is Sadhana Bhakti, and then chapter 17 to 18 is Bhava Bhakti, and then chapter 19 is Prema Bhakti. This is what we will be focusing on. Okay. 3 kinds of Uttama Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti. I think some of you have to leave. We are recording this class. Feel free to go. I completely give you my understanding. But let me finish a little bit more, because then it will be a lot for other teachers to finish and for you all to catch. Is that okay? We will, Rupa Mataji will share the recording. She's recording it. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes,
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. So far we discussed the preface, the introduction, and now we are actually discussing the overview of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where I said that we are focusing on only eastern side of the ocean. The eastern side of the ocean has 4 waves, and what are the 4 waves is Samanya Bhakti, or general description of Bhakti, which we discussed in introduction in chapter 1, and then Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. These are the 4 waves, or lahari. And there are 3 kinds of Uttama Bhakti. We defined what is pure devotional service. That was a pivotal verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Then in Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. Starts with Sadhana Bhakti. They are all Uttama Bhakti, but it starts in Sadhana Bhakti. Then when Sadhana Bhakti is matured, and it becomes Bhava Bhakti. When Bhava Bhakti is mature, it becomes Prema Bhakti. Same thing. It is compared to a flower. It is in the budding stage, then it matures a little bit, and then it fully blooms. So same bhakti, but different levels of maturity. Okay, understood? Any questions so far? Any questions from anybody so far? It's a difficult book.
No, Mataji.
No, okay. Dr. Parak is encouraging me. Okay, chapter 1, characteristics of pure devotional service. What are the characteristics of pure devotional service? So there are 6 things which happen in the life. This is Sadhana Bhakti, right? Okay, so this is an overview of Sadhana Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti is of 2 types, Vaidehi Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, which we will discuss later on. So what happens when one starts chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? What happens? This is science, right? You do an experiment and you get the result. These are the things which happen depending on, am I chanting as Nam Aparad, of with offenses, or Nam Abhas, or maybe just like almost nullifying the offenses, or Shuddha Nam, or completely pure name. Okay, so when one starts chanting Hare Krishna, they feel relief from material distress, Krishagni. Okay, that motivates a person to chant more. Then the second thing that happens is Shubda, bestowing all auspiciousness. And sadhana bhakti is fully manifested at nishtha. And then moksha laghu krit derives the happiness of liberation. So sadhana bhakti gives birth to these two qualities, kleshagni and shubda. When sadhana bhakti matures to bhava bhakti, then it gives birth to two qualities, which are moksha laghu krit, where one derives the happiness of liberation. The happiness that a person derives from getting liberated becomes so little in front of what is the happiness, ocean of happiness in Krishna consciousness, in bhava bhakti stage. And then sudurlabha, it is very, very rarely achieved, bhava bhakti stage. And then in prema bhakti stage, two more qualities manifest, sadra nanda visheshatma, which means condensed bliss. There is happiness, right, in sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti, but in prema bhakti the happiness is so condensed, so thick, it's impenetrable, you cannot like understand. Those in devotional service derived even the conception of liberation. And then Sri Krishna akarshani, Krishna becomes attracted to a person who is situated in prema bhakti platform. Okay, so these are the 6 qualities. And a little bit, we'll discuss each one of them, but there's a little bit more detailed discussion about this thing called as Kleshagni. When one starts chanting Hare Krishna and starts their route in Krishna consciousness, people ask us, right, that why 16 rounds? Why 4 regular principles? Right? These kind of questions are asked. So the answer is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on Nectar of Devotion, that if somebody follows the rules and regulations given by the Shastras, then but first thing that happens is that bhakti relieves all kind of distress, kleshagni. This is very detailed, but let's see. So Krishna can protect the surrendered, and we suffer, right? We are suffering. Why? Because of our karma. And why did we do a karma that leads us to suffering? Because of ignorance, avidya. Mostly the reason is avidya. But that is not the reason to stop the suffering. Avidya is a reason to commit wrong activity, but that is not the reason not to suffer. Sins are due to ignorance, and some sins are mature, some are immature. So that is what Rupa Goswami Prabhupada is going to describe. And this chain of sinful activity will drag the suffering soul through lifetimes. And these are the Shastric evidences that if somebody performs Krishna consciousness or devotional service to Krishna, all the sins, all of them are destroyed. Some of them which are manifested, which are incompletely manifested, or some are which are yet to be manifested. Krishna says this, Prabhupada gives evidence. My dear Uddhava, devotional service unto me is just like a blazing fire which can burn into ashes, unlimited fuel supplied to it. 11 canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And 3rd canto, anyone who performs the 9 kinds of devotional services, even if born in a family of dog eater, becomes immediately qualified to perform sacrifices. This is a very good example. A dog eater, Chandal, right? A Chandal is even lower than a Shudra. How come they became a Chandal, a dog eater? Because of the sinful activities, because of ignorance, right? But it says that even a Chandal, when they start chanting Hare Krishna and they take up to the regulated principles of Krishna consciousness, they immediately become qualified to perform sacrifices. They immediately become promoted to Vaishnava. From Chandal to immediately becoming a Vaishnava. So it's so powerful. Krishna consciousness is so powerful. I want to describe the cycle of sin, and then we will discuss why is it more important than jnana or karma or dhyana. Specific qualification of a devotee is that the devotee is very alert not to commit any further sinful activities. Okay. So this is what is happening. Klesha means material distress, and there are 3 kinds of sufferings, 3 kinds of secondary and 4 kinds of primary sufferings. Can anyone say that to me? My throat is drying up from talking so much. What are the 3 kinds of secondary sufferings and 4 kinds of primary sufferings? I think Saita Mataji spoke today. Sunita Mataji also spoke today. Someone who has not spoken today. If you want me to go on, you please have to answer. 3 kinds of secondary sufferings, 4 kinds of primary sufferings. What are those kleshas? Material distresses. Sharmila Mataji will save the day. Yes.
The 4 kind of primary sufferings are birth, death, old age, and disease. And the 3 kinds of secondary miseries are Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, and Adidaivik.
Very nice. Thank you. So, thank you, Mataji. So nice, right? We are going to meet the death. Why? Because suffering. Why? because of avidya. Soul never dies. We just heard a nice presentation. So how come I'm dying? Because I'm supposed to go through this suffering. Why? This is why is answered here. So klesha or material distress has 3 reasons. What are the reasons? Avidya is ignorance, does not know what is to be done, what is not to be done. Because of ignorance, one gets the bija. Bija means a seed of material happiness. I make plans that I'm going to be happy materially this way, that way, going places, going shopping, eating this, drinking this, watching this, hearing this, right? Touching this, smelling this. And then we commit the sinful activity, which is not in alignment with the scriptures. And then we suffer. So the root cause is avidya. Okay, this is interesting. There are 2 ways of explaining this. Please hear me. It took me a long time to understand. And I'm still understanding different aspects. So please hear my 19 years of collective knowledge I'm giving here in maybe 9 seconds. So avidya or ignorance leads to a sinful desire, bija, that I want to be happy in this way. Let's say somebody doesn't know the side effects of alcohol, then that ignorance or not knowing the side effect of alcohol will lead to this desire that I want to drink. Okay. And then that leads to sinful activity, leads to this addiction, papam, right? Sin bija leads to papam. And then aprarabdha. So because somebody has committed sin, sometimes the reaction of the sin will not come immediately. The reaction of the sin may come. Aprarabdha is a reaction which will come after many, many lifetimes. It's not going to come in this life or the next life or the next to next life. It's going to come. It's there. So that unmanifested reaction. So person thinks, oh, I'm going to go on committing sinful activity. I'm never caught. I'm so nice. I can escape the laws of God. I can escape the laws of the state, and I'm going to go on committing it. Okay. So that motivates. So that's kutam. Sinful disposition continues because they're not seeing a reaction. But one day it is going to mature. Now, may not be this lifetime, next time it's going to mature. So that mature stage is called prarabdha, manifest reaction. The prarabdha means something which is already mature and which is already there. Somebody who is born with a birth defect, right? Somebody is born like that. It's born. How come? So this prarabdha has already happened. Some lifetime sinful activity is now matured and now it is showing effects. Or somebody who is uneducated. Like, how come? There's so much education available around. How come this person is uneducated? Because of this prarabdha has become prarabdha. And then we go on with our sufferings. This is one way of understanding. Okay, but there's another way, which is one of my favorite ways. We are going to go from subtle to gross. Okay, so subtle is aprarabdha. One will go on committing sinful activity. They will not get any reaction. That's aprarabdha in this life, or they may not get it in next life, but they may not get it in next to next life, but they will get it. They're there. Sinful activities are there. Reactions are waiting. So that's aprarabdha, subtle. Okay, and then more gross than that is kutam. Kutam means that the reaction is going to come in next life or next to next life. It's going to come. So somebody may get a dream like that in my next life, I'm going to I'm going to be this and I'm going to meet an accident. So this dream is like kutam. Okay, so that's more gross. Aprarabdha is completely subtle. Kutam is more gross. And then the next more gross is than kutam is bija. Bija means that this particular reaction is going to come in this life only. If somebody's life is going completely fine, but then suddenly they meet with accident and they're done. Or somebody faces a very big loss in their life and then it's completely done. Or somebody loses a part of their body, they were completely healthy and it's done. So that's bija. In this particular life, somebody may even get a dream about it. Somebody may even get a sense of it. So that's the bija acting that this particular life, this particular thing is going to happen to me. And then prarabdha is something which is already manifested, like born like that. So bhakti, if somebody is on a jnana marg, or somebody, let's say, on a karma marg, say, okay, I have so many sufferings, I have to find out an antidote, I need to do pious activities because there's so many impious activities. That's karma, right? That's karma kand. Okay, that's karma kand is pious activity. So that may give me some relief from some suffering. So rather than suffering on the earthly planet, I will suffer in Indra's planet or Brahma's planet. It's not gonna take me to spiritual world. So that's karma kand. Okay, we still remain a part of the very much a part of the material world. And then somebody who's on a jnana marg, knowledge, right? I'm going to renounce everything. I'm going to put a mask on my feet. I'm not going to put socks or shoes on my legs. I'm not going to eat cooked food. Some severe austerities, right? Impersonalists do these austerities because they don't want to commit any sin. That can purify, but you know what? That takes lifetimes. It doesn't purify in one birth. It doesn't, because aprarabdha and kutam are very difficult. So we have to take many births and do the same practice again and again. But chanting Hare Krishna, taking to Krishna consciousness, actually burns all these 4 levels of sinful activities in this life. So powerful. It just burns. Everything is burnt. Krishna says, right? Sarva dharman parityaja. Mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. He says, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I will relieve you from all sinful activity. These are the sinful activities. Masucha. Do not fear. This is the meaning, okay? So cycle of sinful act life. So taking to Krishna consciousness is always the best thing, most auspicious. That's one thing. Then other thing that happens when one takes to Krishna consciousness, I'll continue for more than just 5 more minutes, okay? We're at 1.5 hour mark. I'll probably tell Ashwarya to continue tomorrow then. Shubdha, second, in sadhana bhakti itself, first thing what happens is kleshagni. One feels a sense of relief. Then I'm sure Krishna is going to take care of me. I'm sure that if I take to this process of Krishna consciousness, all this account in material world is going to be completely cleared, and I'm going to get ready to launch myself to next level of going back to Krishna. So Shubdha, auspiciousness, it brings a lot of auspiciousness. We all want auspicious things to happen in our life. Anyone sitting in this class and hoping some inauspicious thing to happen? Anyone?
No, Mataji.
No, Mataji.
No, Mataji.
No,
We
no,
don't
no.
want anything inauspicious to happen, right? So Krishna consciousness brings eternal auspiciousness in someone's life, because we don't suffer. As suffering decreases, auspiciousness increases. These two are fully manifested nishtha. Auspiciousness means welfare for everyone. Auspiciousness means development of all good qualities, character, not only knowledge. You know, my spiritual master was at my home a few days last week, and he was telling that the education that's based in the secular world right now is not focused on value and character. It is focused on skills, right? There's no value and character. So if you really want to be accepted as who you are, then work on your value and character. You'll always win. But if you really want to have a superficial relationship with anyone, or want others to have superficial relationship, then just the skill is enough. For example, let's say that around you there is a person who's very skilled, very good engineer. They work as one of the topmost managers in their firm, but they don't have a character or value. You know, whatever they eat, whatever they drink, whatever, and they have many illicit relationships, and gambling is their hobby. So we will go to that person to get things from that person, not the person, right? He was explaining like this to me. So you go to that person because there's some benefit from that person, but that benefit is, but you don't want to deal with that person. You don't want to be like, become best friends and imbibe those qualities and characters. Would you? You go to that person to get stuff from that person, but you don't go to that person to relate to that person. Correct?
Yes.
But let's say the same person has very high values in life. They stick to those values which are in alignment with the principles of the scriptures, and they can give you reference. They have a spiritual master, and their life is filled with that value. Like Srila Prabhupada, for example, you can think of and meditate on Prabhupada at this time. Then we will go to Prabhupada to serve Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, can you just purify me because you're so purified, right?
Yes,
That is so Krishna consciousness does that. Krishna, in the southern wave, the southern part of this book, southern part of the ocean of Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, 64 qualities of Krishna are described. Okay, so if somebody goes to Supreme Personality of Godhead, then if becomes a pure devotee, then they can have up to 50 to 55 of those qualities. Just because you go to Krishna, Krishna gives those qualities as a gift. So that character and knowledge comes. Shubda is very auspicious. Auspiciousness means superior happiness. So Rupa Goswami Prabhupada at this time talks about happiness at 3 levels. One is a happiness which is derived from material enjoyment. Second is a happiness which is derived from merging into the Brahman effulgence or Brahmananda. And third is a happiness of Krishna consciousness. So he describes the auspiciousness is beyond the material enjoyment, beyond the Brahmananda, because the auspiciousness is in devotional service to Krishna. There is nothing inauspicious in the world, in the kingdom of God. Nothing. Imagine we started this course in the middle of a pandemic when there was a utmost reason to be sad and depressed. I was approached by a girl and by a lady in South India. I was approached. I spoke to her many times that my husband was in debt. Okay. And he lost his job. So we had a debt of about 40 lakh rupees and he lost his job. So now we are on the edge of losing our house and everything. So we don't know where we're going to go in the middle of a pandemic. And I was contemplating, she said that to me. I was contemplating that with my husband, that they had a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old child, that maybe we both should drink poison and give poison to our children and die. But this course saved my life. You see how it's a direct realization. I have this direct connection. So how Krishna consciousness actually gives a different view, that actually it's different level. Happiness of Krishna consciousness is highest and eternal. It excels pleasures find in other two. Okay, so Jai Radha Madhav is said by feelingly from the core of the heart by a person who is Anyabilashita Shunyam. Okay, other person cannot say. So Shubda continues the liberation. Mayavadis fall back to material activities for wonderful relationship, right? They don't meet with all the needs of a soul. It's a need of a soul to be loved, to love, or to have a relationship. It's a need of the soul. The soul, it needs this from Krishna. And then having misdirected, we look for it somewhere else. But actually, Mayavadis nullify, right? Shunyavadi, just make it zero. No relationship because it's Maya. No eating good food because that's Maya. So what do? They adopt heavy. Krishna says himself in 12th chapter, Kleshadikaras tesham, full of sufferings. Their austerities are very, very difficult. Mayavadis. But then what happens? They say Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. They say Jagat Mithya, but then why do they come back to this world and open hospitals and colleges and schools and whatnot? You just said the world is Mithya. How did you come back? Because the soul wants a relationship. They want relationship. They're not coming from the right place. We are starting from the right place. And if you start from the right place, you go so high. Yogis are actually looking for happiness in siddhis, right? There are now at this point, Prabhupada explains in the first chapter 8 kind of siddhis, which the yogis are looking for, like anima, laghima, prapti, ishita, vashita, garima. What is that? To control someone else, and then to change the climatic conditions, or to get whatever we want. So all these 8 kind of siddhis. So yogis, their happiness is on the subtle material experiences, but that is also temporary. It's not nourishing to the soul. Karmis, they can any moment be kicked out, right? Karmi job is very difficult and very chapalla sukha. Examples of the bhaktas are Klovecha Sridhar and Sanatan Goswami. So Kholavecha Sridhar, they're two apparently contradicting personalities. Kholavecha Sridhar Chaitanya Chaitamrita is a devotee who's very poor materially. He sustains himself by selling some plantain leaves. You know, he makes a bowl out of plantain leaves, banana leaves. He sells that, 2 paisa, 3 paisa. That's what he earns, and he lives in a hatched roof. So, and 50% of his income he spends for Mother Ganges worship. So that's Kholavecha Sridhar. And Sanatan Goswami, on the other hand, when he wanted to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very rich. He retired from his job and he had like boat full of gold coins. How many of us have a big boat full of gold coins? But he gave up. He gave up everything to go to Krishna, to go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when he went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, only thing he had was a chadar that I think his brother-in-law gave him, a shawl which was expensive. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked at him, and by his look, he understood that I have to renounce this also. So he went and gave it to a person who was washing the clothes at the adhobi, a washerman. He said, "Why don't you give me your torn chadar and take mine?" So the washerman was astonished that, "Are you sure that you want to do this exchange?" He said, "Yes, because yes." So he did it. So one devotee is apparently very rich and other one is apparently very poor, but they're so happy. Devotee gets all his desires fulfilled by the Lord even without desiring them. Okay, go to Krishna, because Krishna is a storehouse of all desires. Okay, I think I'll stop here. So far, the next two qualities we can discuss tomorrow. So far, what did we discuss? We discussed the preface, which is Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. What is the meaning of the thing? We discussed Rupa Goswami Prabhupada there, and how he heard Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in India on Prayag for 10 days, and then he gave us this Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, the science of Krishna consciousness. There are 6 purposes which are fulfilled, which is given by Prabhupada in introduction preface itself, I think. And in introduction, the author starts invoking Mangalacharan by praying to Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti. And I discussed what is the meaning of Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti, that Krishna is called Akhila Rasa Amrita Murti. He's called God because he has all these 12 relationships in fullness. There is no other personality who is exhibiting it in fullness. It's not that they don't have it, but they don't exhibit it. Okay, and then what we discussed in introduction is the pure devotional service, Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse we discussed. And I requested all of you to please memorize that verse. And then we discussed that introduction has 3 parts: Mangalacharan, then the definition of pure devotional service, and what else is there? There's 1/3. Anyone remembers what was the 3rd part in Mangalacharan? Introduction, 1 second. Contents. What are the contents? So contents, we discussed that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu consists of 4 directions: Eastern, Northern, Western, and Southern. And we are focusing on the eastern side of the ocean, and it has 4 waves. For Lahari, so first Lahari is the Samanya Bhakti, second Lahari is the Sadhana Bhakti, third Lahari is Bhava Bhakti, fourth Lahari is Prema Bhakti. So for introduction in chapter 1 is discussing the Samanya, the general description of the Bhakti. And then we discussed, what did we discuss? That Uttama Bhakti includes all these 3 things: Sadhana, Bhava, Prema. It is the same flower in different stages of exhibition of its fullness. And then we discussed that what are the 6 things that devotional service brings about. Kleshagni, we discussed in detail. Go back and read today if you really want to understand chapter 1, at least the Kleshagni part, that the cycle of sin. And I discussed the 2 ways that I understood this verse or this cycle. One is that you literally like see it, that avidya leads to bija, bija leads to papam, and papam leads to aprarabdha, and aprarabdha matures to prarabdha. But then because aprarabdha continues for so long, it also leads to kutam or sinful disposition. And we also discussed the second part of understanding, from subtle to gross. Subtle is no reaction, that's aprarabdha. Then some reaction is going to come, which is kuta, and which will come in next life or next life. And then the next one is bija, which is going to come in this life itself. And papam is something which is already mature, which one is already facing. Okay, and then I discussed that how this Krishna consciousness is auspicious, and in that we discussed Rupa Goswami Prabhupada describes happiness in 3 levels: happiness derived from material enjoyment, from merging in Brahman effulgence and from Krishna consciousness. And we discussed each and every element that happiness derived from material enjoyment. Bhukta, mukta, kami. Bhukti, mukti, kami. So all these persons who are bhukti, mukti, kami, they are on the material level, needing liberation or needing the 8 kind of yogic siddhis or doing some material sense gratification. But Krishna consciousness is beyond that. And I gave example of Kholavecha Sridhar and Sanatan Goswami Prabhupada. This is where we end. Thank you. Mataji, we can stop recording. Thank you. Any questions? Dr. Saxena, Mataji, Dashwamedh Ghat is in Varanasi and not Prayag. Prabhupada is writing in the preface. Maybe it changed now. Maybe it was not at the times. I don't know. I'm just saying what's written in the book. Any questions, reflections, realizations? 2-3 minutes. Rupa Mataji, please stop recording. You can raise your hand or write to me in the chat.